I get an A to Z claim now is because some people, they just don't even bother to contact you. They just go directly to Amazon and file and call with a complaint about an item, even though the proper process is to first contact the seller. And a lot of times when they do that, the Amazon agent will just open an A to Z claim. So so you will get those periodically, but it's not frequent enough to really be too worried about it. Chargeback claims, that's actually when somebody buys an item and then they go to their credit card company and say I didn't get the item or I'm not happy with the item, and then the credit card company goes back to Amazon, blah blah blah. And in those situations, Amazon's going to send you out an email and ask for information about the item, and then they're going to more than likely just give the customer their money back, and you'll lose the money. So in those, again, this one is another super super rare one, and just follow the process that Amazon has for it. Give them the information they want, and then just don't worry about it, because for the most part, you should not get enough chargeback claims ever to get your account in trouble. If you are, you really need to sit down and reflect and say, why is this happening? Because it shouldn't happen. I mean, I have worked with multiples of sellers and nobody ever gets these things. So if you're just getting them in a high frequency, you have to really sit down and think, like, could I be doing something? Because I don't know how else that could be happening to you. Okay, so that's the customer service performance part. Pretty simple there. All you got to worry about is those three things, and you should never have a problem. And for the most part, if you're an FBA only seller, you almost don't really have to worry about any of them, because probably the biggest one you have to worry about is chargeback claims, or, well, negative feedback and chargeback claims as an FBA seller, and neither one of those is very frequent. So, I mean, I don't think very many people ever get suspended on their account from these metrics, simply put. Unless they're a merchant fulfilled seller, then that's very possible. So, all right. So let's jump over to the policy compliance section. And this is the one that I think you really want to be watching for. Suspected intellectual property violations. So that's the very first one you'll see on the list there. This one is not typically a big deal. But with that said, you do not want to be getting a lot of these, because if you're getting a lot of these, they typically go to a suspected suspected intellectual property violation to a actual intellectual property violation. And the actual one, which is the second one down, the received intellectual property complaint, that is not one that you want to get. So while a suspected one is not a big deal, you still want to keep those to a minimum so they don't flip to an actual one, if that makes sense. The first one line, not really heavily too worried about it. And I'm going off the basis that most of us are booksellers. If you get one in there, and if you get a book that comes up with that, more than likely you're only going to have one copy of that book available. What I typically do in that scenario is I just take that book offline, because I don't even want to deal with. You can say, well, I spent $3 on that book and I can make $12 if I sell it. Well, is it really worth losing your account over just for that $12? I don't see it as it. I'll just eat the $3, get rid of the book, take it offline, so I'm not at worry at all. And in theory, I think sometimes this works and other times it doesn't work. When you remove that item, if you remove that asset completely from your Amazon account, then that actual violation will disappear from your performance tab as well, which is just another good thing. And it takes that item completely out of your account, so you can never receive an actual violation for it. So I highly recommend that. Again, if you want to ask me how often I get one of these, it is so rare. So rare that it's almost not worth talking about. But people have different experiences, and as far as the received intellectual property complaint, that's a big deal, and that can nip you in the butt pretty quick. So it is not something you want to ignore. One, maybe you can look at it and be like, get that item offline, get it out of sale, make Amazon forget you ever had it, even though you probably are selling a perfectly legit item. Just make it disappear so there's never any concern about it, and then move on. So let's go into the next one. The next one is another pretty important one, product authenticity complaints. This is more or less like a counterfeit type thing, which you absolutely never in any situation want to do this. Now, and again, what happens if you get one of these? What they're going to ask you for is to submit an invoice to show that the item is not a counterfeit. Again, like I told you at the beginning of this podcast, more than likely, Amazon is never going to accept any of the receipts that a used bookseller has. You can please try it a couple times. Be more motivated than me. Try it a couple times and see if you can get them to accept one of them. But more than likely, they're not going to accept it. So you can certainly fight this battle, but more than likely, they're just going to ignore you because you're not buying from an actual publisher or something like that with the proper invoice that they ask for. So again, this is just something you have to keep an eye on. If you see one of these come through, remove that item completely from your Amazon account, and then just always keep track of this. Make sure you're not getting too many. If you ever feel like, oh my God, I'm in a dangerous place, I don't know what to do, shoot an email over to sales@kingsridgemedia.com and ask me. I'm happy to jump on a call and sit down with you and look at it and see what are some of the options you can do just to kind of protect your account. There are certain things you could always do. All of these complaints on here are like on a revolving 6-month window. So they fall off after 6 months and they no longer harm you after 6 months. So in the worst case scenario, if you get to a place where your account feels unsafe, like I'm afraid I'm going to lose my account, you can simply go online and take everything offline so you don't get any sales for the next 6 months. Let everything fall off your account and then pick right up after that 6 months. Hopefully you wouldn't ever have to do that, but there are options to, if you get to a place where you're like, oh crap, what am I going to do? Blah, 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 blah. You can slow down sales because even if you're still selling, but you're not selling nearly as much stuff, it mitigates the amount of complaints like this you're going to get, to allow you more time for those complaints to fall off. And you can just do things like that to try and protect your account, make sure that you don't lose anything from it. So, but again, the product authenticity one, you want to pay attention to that. That one is important. Product condition customer complaints. This couple years ago was super, super big, like especially for booksellers. But I haven't seen one of these in a really, really long time again. So I think they've kind of backed off on this. Basically what that is normally it's just selling a new item as used, or a used item as new. And even if you're selling a new item, a customer might get it, make the decision that to them it's not new, and they will file a complaint, and you'll get one of these. Again, haven't seen these in a long time, so I think that this has kind of died down. But this is also a big one that, and especially as a media seller, you want to pay attention to, because I do see this one nip a lot of media sellers by doing this. And the easiest way to do this is you're never going to get a condition complaint for selling an item used. So if you're fraying the lines of selling new items, maybe just focus on used items, because if you're worried about that one, just focused on used, you can never get a complaint. They're not going to give you a condition complaint for selling a very good item or a good item as very good, or a good item as like new, but they are going to hit you if you go from used to new. So food and product safety issues, that's going to be more of a manufacturer specific thing. You just I don't have the knowledge because I don't sell in these categories. I get these kind of things. If you're focusing specifically on book selling, you will never have to worry about